Hello there, friends and sane persons, and welcome to another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. My name is Kyle, and Wednesday Whimsy is a short show I do every week where I talk about a board game topic, a top 10, or some other thing that happens to be on my mind. And today, we're kind of in that last category, some other thing that happens to be on my mind. I recently posted a picture, sort of my Kickstarter profile, as it kind of finally clicked to 1,000, meaning that I had backed 1,000 products over the last, I don't know, however many years Kickstarter has been around. I guess I want to say about 2011 is when it started. I don't remember exactly, but that's about the time frame. So it's been, a good number of years, more than a decade. That's, a long time. I didn't back 1,000 projects in 1 week or 1 month. That would be ridiculous. It's 1,000 sort of all in across all time. So as I was kind of thinking about that, I thought that might be a fun topic to talk about. Now, I did talk about general musings on Kickstarter about a year or a year and a half ago on another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. You're welcome to check that out. But I thought now that I'd reached this milestone, I would revisit the topic, and I would give you, some lessons that I've learned, some kind of general thoughts about certain projects that have been great and certain projects that have been less great. I'm not going to go into a lot of stats here. That's not really what anyone's particularly interested in, I'm sure. But, it's 1,000 projects, which is a lot. So I have, I guess, a lot of experience, more than some, with wasting money on board games on Kickstarter. And I say wasting money, I say that sort of in jest because obviously, it's also buying games and getting games and hopefully even, eventually enjoying games. And so I thought I would give you a couple of, I don't know, just a few thoughts of things I've done over the years, and we'd see where it goes from there. So I'm going to talk, first of all, about kind of my highlights. Things that I really enjoyed being a part of on Kickstarter. One thing I really love is kind of the opportunity to watch something be developed. It's, it's not always, some people talk about a community. I don't really find Kickstarter to be a community. If anything, it's a toxic one. Sorry, as I've been talking, it looks like I backed my first Kickstarter in September of 2011. That was from Eagle Griffin Games, a game called Mirror Mirror that was mediocre. And then a game about some weird dice was my second one, sort of following right along. Dice Age is what it was called. 2011 is about right. What I do enjoy, though, is watching the development of something. Now, that really depends, right? Some Kickstarter projects are run by large companies, and watching the development is going to be pictures of people's minis or something like that. But there's occasional times where if you really love something or you're really excited about something, you can kind of watch it and not necessarily be a part of it. There's thousands of other people, but it's interesting to watch. Secondly, it's an interesting thing for me because the way that I do Kickstarters nowadays is I'll buy it and it will come a few years later. And it's almost like a surprise when it shows up on my doorstep. It's like, oh, well, what am I getting today? Do I remember that I backed it at some point? Yes, but but it's it's something that. Sorry, I was writing something down for later. It's something that I enjoy kind of getting this surprise. I think, some of my favorite Kickstarter games, Cthulhu Death May Die, that was one I was super excited about. And it really, it turned out to be fantastic. There have been smaller games. There have been Asian games, sort of things that are harder to get, like this game called Terrorscape. That's just so fantastic and really not available in a lot of other contexts. The Small World Collector's Edition, this huge box. I remember when I got that thing, that was so exciting. That was something I was so looking forward to. And also kind of disappointed that it came unpainted, right? It kind of felt like, it was promised that it was going to be painted, and then they said, well, it'll look better if you all paint it yourself. And I was really kind of disappointed at that. That was something it felt like, mm, um, anything from Chip Theory games, right? Too Many Bones was not one that I discovered on Kickstarter, but their later games, such as Cloudspire, I jumped right in as soon as the Kickstarter was available, and that's the best way to get their games. It's usually, just because they make them themselves, and you can kind of really get excited about these new expansions to games that you love. So those are just some of the highlights. So I'm not going to talk about lowlights. I don't want to be too negative, although I will say some negative things in a moment. But what have I learned? Well, not much, right? Kickstarter isn't college, although it may cost as much. Um, but I've kind of, over the years, I think I've been slowing down in the number of projects I get excited about. One thing, yeah. Sorry, one thing that I've learned is that it always takes a lot longer than it really should. It's I don't think anyone really understands how long games take to make, and because of that, these deadlines that companies put out are often so very unrealistic, and that really leads to disappointment. So one thing I've learned is it takes a lot longer than you think, and prepare to be disappointed. I've had many very disappointing experiences on Kickstarter. I've had games come out that have not been well tested, that aren't very good, that have, some promise in them, but ultimately don't feel like they're fully finished, and that really should have gone through, some development that a publisher might have given them. So, another thing, prepare to be disappointed. I mean, I think you have to go into this with the understanding that you're going to find a lot of mediocre games and other experiences. Third, I know, the Dice Tower people are fond of saying this, never back tech. One of the only Kickstarters I have that's not delivered was a piece of technology, and I'm sure it'll never come at this point. It's probably been 8 years since that campaign finished. So that's just money that I lost. But, oftentimes people will come out and say, here, back us. We're going to make this app, or we're going to make this video game, or an app version of a video game. And you can if you want, but just sort of the nature of those things is that in many cases it's better just to wait and see, especially if it's technology that people have to send you things, because nothing that I've ever gotten from Kickstarter that's kind of a new technology has ever really worked that well. It's, it ends up being more as seen on TV than actually usable, interesting things. I remember I bought some weird shoelaces that I know this is mostly board games, but there were these shoelace things, and it was supposed to be a magnetic clasp on your shoelaces so you could step out, they would unclasp, and then they'd retie themselves. Total junk, right? That didn't work. It wasn't, it looked really cool, but it was really very disappointing. Uh, and most things I've gotten that are not sort of games on Kickstarter have been fairly universally disappointing. So, be prepared to be disappointed. Third thing is, everyone always has an excuse. Kickstarter updates, in many cases, are just where you'll hear people's excuses. And I say, things really happen in people's life. I recognize that. But, you will get some of the worst sort of, it just feel, and I look, these things may be real what people post there, but people will sort of complain about, oh, we talked to our manufacturer, we talked to our shipping company, whatever it may be. You don't care, right? That's not what I want to hear. I want to know, when is my product arriving? People will talk about their family struggles. There's this one company I'll talk about in a minute that, it's just been going on, and there's always something wrong. There was this Minion Games, right, where the guy ran a campaign for an expansion to Manhattan Project Energy Empire and then died. And then for whatever reason, even though the money was kind of, already in a trust or something, we had to go through all kinds of estate processes. And okay, whatever, right? But it sort of felt like, if the money was with the company, it probably should have stayed there and gone to make the product. But no, we had to wait and then have it bought by another company. And it just went on and on. We'll talk about a couple of companies like that again in a moment. But so everyone always has an excuse. And then another thing is you can almost always get it later. So sort of joining in the Kickstarter hype is for people like me who are going to buy it anyway and just use this as an opportunity for a pre-order, and you can kind of check in on it and see where it is. For most people, it's better to get it later. It's better to get it after it's been tested, after people have reviewed it, after it's been looked at, after we've seen if it's any good. Because most of the games, probably 70%, not good. Sorry. Some have been fantastic. You get sort of a Gloomhaven, or even Brass Birmingham was a product of Kickstarter. The current kind of top games on Board Game Geek. But for every one of those, you're going to find 10 bad games. It's just the nature of how it goes. So you can always get it later. Prepare for disappointment. Everyone has an excuse. And it'll always take a lot longer than you think, or anyone thinks. So what do I look for these days? Well, I don't really have a formula, right? I often will back something. But these days it's more if it's a company that I already have a good experience with, or if it's a game I was going to buy anyway and I'm just saving myself hunting for the expansions, or if it's a game from somewhere that's smaller, or from a company that's smaller, or from somewhere that's far away, and this game is going to be difficult to find on the secondary market. I'm not talking about Kickstarter exclusive stuff. That stuff you can always find on the secondary market if you're willing to pay for it. But some of these, Asian games, or games from, smaller publishers in Eastern Europe or South America, they just don't have distribution and may never have distribution in the US, and people who have the games are going to hold on to them, and it will be difficult to find them. And so for situations like that, I'm often willing to sort of say, okay, let's go ahead and do the Kickstarter. Everything else, it's going to be from an established publisher or an established product that I already like and that I just want more of, and I don't want to think about later. I don't want to wait and think, okay, I have to order this when it finally goes up for pre-order. I just pay for it now. It's done, and I move on with my life. Yeah, that's kind of what I look for. So now we're going to do a bit of sort of some Clint Eastwood, borrow from Clint Eastwood here. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. These are publishers that I've had great experiences with, kind of disappointing experiences with, or outright bad experiences with. So here's the good. These are all companies that when they publish something on Kickstarter, I'm interested in it. And I know that it's going to be worth my time. Garfield Games is the first one that comes to mind. Couple of reasons. First of all, they always deliver. They always deliver earlier on time. They have a great knowledge of how long it takes. And also, they don't feel like they're gouging you because I know I can order this later on. Their concept is, order through Kickstarter or pre-order it or buy it later. We don't care. This is just one sort of stream of commerce. You can pick your choice. And I appreciate that. They don't treat me, they don't lie to me and say, well, we might not be able to make this game. Oh, we hope we're going to get to that $2 million. I like that. Similarly, Too Many Bones, their company, Chip Theory Games, excuse me. And when I say Kickstarter, many of these will use the GameFound platform or even the BackerKit platform, but it's all kind of the same. Chip Theory Games, their stuff, they only ever sell it themselves. And so if you're going to buy it from them retail, they will charge you more for it. It's cheaper to buy it. You'll get the best price if you buy it on Kickstarter. And again, I can respect that. Also, I like most of their games. They're good quality. And so this is the way to get them. There's a company called Uchibakoya. That's a Japanese company. They did the game Aqua Garden. They did the game recently Biohack. They have a game called Ostia, I think is what it's called. I've not played Ostia, but I got it through the most recent Kickstarter. Hopefully it'll come. I like them because my experience with them is that they're pretty good. They're pretty fast. They have realistic expectations. Their communication is good. And they have terrible distribution. So I know that this is really the best way to get it. Let's see. I look at Off the Page Games. That's the ones who did Mind Management. They did Harrow County. Their stuff's always great. And if I want the deluxe edition, Kickstarter's the best way to go for it. They're fast, they're communicative, they're very involved. I like them. Gamelin Games, I mean, you know, their Tiny Epic series and everything else goes through Kickstarter. And although the quality of some of those games is below par, I mean, I have some serious issues with some of the products they've put out. Some are outright pretty bad. When they're good, and it's really the best way to get many of their games. And so I keep sucking it up and buying the next one in the series. I have another one written down here, but I can't seem to read my handwriting, but that's okay. We've had, IV. IV, that's the ones who did Mythic Mischief. Is that what it's called? They did the Moonrakers. Their stuff's good. Their Kickstarters are well run, and it's easy to get. It's sort of easy to get behind anything that they do. If you want their stuff, it's the best way to get it. So I like all of these. I've had great experiences with them. They've been close to on time, and there's been something extra about the experience. Let's talk about the bad. These are companies I've had generally negative experiences with on Kickstarter, but not bad enough that I wouldn't go back. We'll go through this quickly. Arcane Wonders. I love the company. I love their products. I am still waiting for this Sentinels of the Multiverse game, this re-implementation of Defenders of the Realm. Freedom 5 it's called. Oh my goodness, that thing has been an excuse after another excuse. There's always something wrong. Just send me the game. Gray Fox, terrible. Their quality is terrible. And their Kickstarters, the guy that they have running them, he just seems to think that everyone wants to hear a complaint. No one wants to hear a complaint. People want to hear what's going on. And I mean, their Kickstarter guy is just the worst. I to the point where I just don't know that I'm interested in backing their stuff anymore. I'll get it later if it's any good. White Wizard. White Wizard is a company that makes sort of Hero Realms, Star Realms. I've loved many of their games. I think many of their games are fantastic. They have no concept of time. I mean, an expansion for Hero Realms that's just a few more scenarios to play through somehow takes 3.5 or 4 years. It's ridiculous. Their stuff, I mean, I will still back it because I want to get it, and, you know, I'm okay waiting for it, but that company has no concept of time. Cool Mini or not, I like them. Again, a company that has no concept of time. I still go to the Kickstarter because I want to get everything for these games that I know that I'll already like, but I generally only back the stuff that I know. Whenever I've sort of jumped into something unknown, it's often been disappointing. But, you know, if it's a new Zombicide or Cthulhu Death May Die stuff, I'm in, right? I'll go along for the ride. Stoneblade, another company with no concept of time. Funforge, one of the few companies that still has not delivered. They sent out an announcement in November saying things were shipping soon. Still haven't gotten it. They have no concept of time, and oh my goodness, they'll talk about excuses, they'll talk about their holidays, they will sort of say, well, we have to get behind this other product first. I think they might be getting out of the Kickstarter market, and they might even be suffering financial collapse, but they're on my bad list. Not terrible, but probably the very bottom of the bad list. Let's talk about the ugly. Companies that just are terrible. First one is a company called Penguin and Panda. It feels like a scam, honestly, at this point. The guy keeps coming through and saying, well, look, you know, we got this mock-up, but, you know, there's 6 months between the updates. I suspect I'm never getting the game from them. Mythic Games, famously, mismanaged, used Kickstarter as kind of a Ponzi scheme to fund its future projects, and ran out of money, and basically said to people, whoops, sorry. And also, apparently for some of their projects, went after people and said, hey, pay us $70 extra to get your stuff. Really bad behavior. I think they might be going out of business, though, so that's not going to be one to watch again. Peterson Games, they're the people who made Cthulhu Wars. They're one of the worst out there. They will give you updates talking about how wonderful they are and not give you any information about the game. I still have a game that I think they haven't even started, and I probably backed it 3 years ago. They don't like to give you straight stuff. They did this weird, for Cthulhu Wars, this weird lottery system where you could purchase slots on a pallet, and when the pallet was fully purchased, it would be sent out in order to raise some extra money. They are mismanaged. They are, I think they're probably trying to do the right thing, but they have no clue what they're doing. And other than Cthulhu Wars and Glorantha, their games are pretty trashy anyway. But I just will not. If I see that they are involved, I'm out. So those are some of the uglies, and I might even put Funforge down there at this point. So there, I've said some bad things. But what are my kind of final thoughts? Kickstarter is there. It's a way to order things. It's spawned a couple of clones, GameFound and BackerKit and Indiegogo, but we don't talk about that one anymore. I don't mind it. I obviously keep going back. It's a regular part of my game budget. But I don't think it's for everyone, and it probably isn't for you. It's easy to get excited about things. It's easy to get passionate about things there. But I'll warn you, some of the community is a little bit toxic. Some of the people are pretty nasty. And you'll get sort of the people who complain, and then the people who jump to everyone's defense, and you've got some flame war in the comments. Best to stay out. Never read the comments. So, go in at your own peril, but make sure it's something that you really want and something you're really willing to wait for, because you're going to be waiting a long time, and what you get might not be worth the wait. So, anyway, I'm 1,000 in. I don't know that I'm trying for 2,000, but I'll keep going back to it, hopefully less, because I have enough games at this point, but I guess we'll see. And I'm going to leave it right there. So thank you for joining me on this episode of Wednesday Whimsy. I've enjoyed kind of talking you through my random musings on Kickstarter again, after my lessons after 1,000 experiences. And I guess I will end it here. And I will wish you safe travels, courage when you need it. And I'll hope to see you back next time on another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. Bye-bye.